Whoa, that was awesome and actually pretty easy to achieve. In this video, I'll show you how to achieve the 6 different types of seamless transition that you just watched to make your videos that extra bit smoother. While I did use the X5 for my shots, you can use any past or future Insta360 camera or any 360 camera for that matter, since the workflow is going to be the same. Now, this is a video that I'm adding to my 360 Video 101 course, but also sharing for free with you guys on YouTube as a taste of what you'll find inside the full course. If you want to learn the entire process from gear to shooting to reframing to editing inside the course, I'll get you up to speed with all of those things really quickly, so you can start making awesome Insta360 videos of your own. You can learn more by following the link below. Alright, so first is the tornado transition, and this one is surprisingly easy to film. All you need to do is hold your camera out on a selfie stick and rotate it around you. And you want to go at least 4 or 5 times around. Then go ahead and repeat the process at a different location. Now here in Insta360 Studio, I've already set my in and out points to get rid of the space where I'm setting up the camera and turning it off at the end. And here from the very first frame of my usable clip, I'm going to track myself. And the easiest way to do that is by using the deep track function and clicking the green box to identify the target, and the software will automatically track me throughout this clip. Now, it's not going to do this perfectly. As you can see, I'm too far to the left-hand side and the horizon is a little bit up and down, but that's okay. If we pause the clip and click on this green bar here, this is where we can edit the actual frame that it tracks. So the main issue here is that I'm too far to the left, so I'm just going to drag the horizontal axis across, so I'm in the middle. Now I'll play the video forward to see how that looks. That's pretty good. And I'll also adjust the tilt down a bit. So my body is mostly in this center axis of the grid. If you haven't turned the grid on yet, you can just go Window, Guides, and then Enable, and I'd recommend grid lines and crosshair. This is going to be important for matching shots one after another, because the main reason that the original montage worked so well is because the shots that I transitioned between had extremely similar framing, and this will make your edit more seamless. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm going to play that forward and see how it looks. And yeah, I'm happy with that. So right now the clip is playing at normal speed, but what we want to do in order to transition this into the next shot is speed up the second half and then speed up the first half of the second clip. So I'm going to go to about halfway through here. I'm going to click the motion icon and drag it across the rest of the clip. And I'm going to speed this up to 8 times. You want to make sure motion ND is selected to get a nice motion blur effect. Now when we play this clip back, it plays at normal speed and then speeds up, even though the preview didn't quite show that. You can adjust the length of a speed transition by clicking on it and dragging the outer edge. I feel like more of this clip could be sped up, since we do have a lot of normal speed here already, probably a bit too much. So I'd rather allocate that time to the sped up bit. And that's about right. I can see I've got at least 2 seconds here when sped up 8 times. So here we've got normal speed, and here we've got sped up. Now here in my second clip, I've repeated the process by setting my in and out points as well as tracking. So I'm in the center. But before we go any further, we need to make sure the 2 frames line up. So remember how I talked about the grid line? Well, here I'm going to make a mental note of where my proportions are right now. I can see my head is a little bit almost halfway to this top section. When I go back to the first shot, I can see it's a bit more zoomed out and my head is closer to the lower side of the top section, which means with the green bar selected, I'm going to change the tilt angle down on this shot. So my chin is closer to this line here. That's looking better. Now, just like we did the first time, we'll need to add that speed adjustment, but since this one is transitioning in, we'll need to add that sped up bit at the start. So I'm going to go to the start of the clip, select the speed icon, and I'm going to move it quite a way along, maybe around here. I'd say about 3/4. Now I'll speed this up to 8 times. Make sure motion blur is on, and there we go. Now chances are you're making these shots to edit into a conventional video, therefore you'll need to use a conventional editing software, and the one I recommend right now is DaVinci Resolve, which is a very powerful editor that can be used completely for free. I will link it below. In order to get your clips into DaVinci Resolve, you'll need to export them one by one in Insta360 Studio or as a batch if you prefer. To do that, I'm going to select my 2 clips. I'm going to hold down Command or Control on PC. So now we've got 2 clips selected. Then I'll head up to Export. I'm going to choose H.265, 3840 by 2160 if you want 4K, otherwise go 1920 by 1080. Choose a save location and hit export. Now I know this is a little bit inconvenient, but it will get faster and faster as you get the hang of editing. Okay, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve and I've imported my 2 clips here one by one. So we have the first shot, which is normal speed to fast, and then we have the second shot, which is fast to normal speed. And when you watch them one after another, they already transition pretty well together. But to make this transition even more seamless, I'm going to right click the line between the 2 clips and add a 12 frame cross dissolve. To add a smooth cross dissolve, you need at least a second or 2 of extra footage on both clips, so DaVinci Resolve has something to blend together. So I'm going to cut this footage on both clips and completely remove it. So then when I add the cross dissolve, it's now reusing the footage I deleted to overlap on either side of this transition. And how long your transitions are will ultimately depend on how effective it is in selling the transition. Sometimes a long transition's better, sometimes a short one's better, and sometimes no transition at all is better, and just doing a hard cut. So let's take a look at this. Oh, look at that. That was amazing. So if you think about it, achieving these kind of seamless transitions is kind of like a magic trick where you're blending it in so seamlessly that people don't even realize that a transition is happening. The ground transition is pretty easy to achieve. Just hold your camera on the selfie stick either above your head or in front of you and swoop it down close to the ground. Obviously don't hit it on the ground and smash your lens, but definitely get close enough to the ground that the camera can see the texture of whatever's underneath you. Then at your second location, repeat the motion, except the action this time will happen after you do the movement. So keep it going for a few seconds after. Here's my timeline in Insta360 Studio. It's a pretty simple one. I chose my first frame here, which is on the Canons. My next keyframe was also on the Canons, but moved across a bit in order to have a bit of a sense of movement. Then the next transition was towards the ground. So what I did, if I play this back, is with this keyframe here, I just zoomed in really close to the ground. So the perspective gets really close in on the motion blur movement here that will allow us to transition easily into the next shot. And you guessed it, the first frame of the next shot starts the exact same way, zoomed in really close on the ground. As you can see, here I am, and it's zoomed in so far that you can't see anything other than the texture, which I then transitioned over to a look ahead at the Cahill Expressway here in Sydney, which looks like this. And then I went ahead and made a full hyperlapse after that in order to be extra clever and keep this montage going infinitely as long as possible. Then in DaVinci Resolve, again, all I'm doing is right clicking, adding 12 frame cross dissolve. Again, you may need to trim just a little bit of either side of the clip to allow for that overlap. Now I'm going to play the transition back, and wow, that worked really well. It's kind of like a magic trick. When you transition so seamlessly, people don't even realize you've changed from one shot to another. So this one was surprisingly simple. So going on from my previous transition, I basically just walked along this pathway here for about 5 minutes and sped it up in Insta360 Studio. As you can see, I've set keyframes along the way in order to keep the horizon dead centered in the middle of my grid. I've also sped this one up to 32 times speed with the motion ND effect on. And that's it, nothing fancy aside from a standard motion blur. But the real magic in this one is going to be matching this shot with our next shot, so it blends in seamlessly. Here's the next shot, and again, you want to try and match the framing as closely as possible in order for this transition to feel extra smooth. So if we go to the end of the previous hyperlapse, we've got an ultra wide shot with a path in front of us. And now with the first frame of this hyperlapse, we've got an ultra wide shot with a path in front of us. It does also help if you're moving in a somewhat straight direction with the hyperlapse transition in order for the shots to transition together without it feeling super bumpy. And again, here in DaVinci Resolve, all I'm doing is adding a simple cross dissolve, which transitions the 2 shots so seamlessly with some help from a whoosh sound effect. Now I think you can probably guess how the sky transition is achieved. So here at the end of my previous hyperlapse, I've keyframed the shot so it goes up. And in this second keyframe here, I've chosen a perspective that is all sky and nothing else. This is because in the next shot, I'm going to match this exact framing to start it. To achieve this one, there's not a whole lot you need to do in terms of filming. Just make sure you've got an open sky above you, which will be the case with most outdoor shots. You'll just want to make sure, however, that you're transitioning from the same type of sky sky, like overcast sky to overcast sky, and not overcast to blue sky. Then I've left about a second of extra footage at the end in order to add that transition in DaVinci. Now here with my second shot, again, I've got that 1 to 2 seconds of overlap, which is just a plain white sky. And then I transition down into a shot of me. If you click the line between two keyframes, you can give the movement character. I chose fade in, fade out for this one. So definitely experiment with these animations if it fits. All right, here are the two clips in DaVinci, and the transition frames are pretty similar, but not totally. So we'll need to put in some extra work to create the magic here. The first thing I think I'm gonna do is minimize the amount of time that it holds on the sky. So I'm going to ripple edit right here and ripple edit left on this one. So as soon as the movement starts, I'm going to cut there. So now let's watch this back. Not bad. It's always good to experiment with adding a cross dissolve, although it may not always be the best choice since that hard cut did already work pretty well as is. So let's watch it back. Yeah, to me that worked really well. If I hover over the middle point here in between the shots, you'll see the sky frames now look so similar with that cross dissolve that the viewer just will not notice this. So if you're ever stuck in the future for transition ideas, try panning up to the sky and then panning down. Simple tricks work wonders. Press record, click, and then at a different location, repeat the process. Now with the click transition, there isn't a whole lot of magic to it. At least on the Insta360 Studio side, all you need to do is reframe your shot to a frame you like and make sure your clicking hand is visible. So go ahead and do that for as many other shots as you want to transition between. When you import these shots into DaVinci Resolve, they're actually going to be surprisingly easy to cut together, especially if you export your clips with sound. If we zoom in nice and close here, you can see the two clicks are here and here. So all we need to do is trim this shot so it's just before the click. So I'm going to hit W on the keyboard, and then here with the second shot, I'm going to transition just before the click happens. Now when we watch that back, so that's a bit of a fun one if you're a fun person, which I'm not really, but I like to pretend. When filming the swipe shot, again, it's super simple. All you need to do is be in plain sight of your camera and swipe across from left to right or right to left. Just make sure it's the same direction with every shot you're doing. Now here's where the trickery begins. I've got the shot here in Insta360 Studio and I've set my first keyframe. I'm going to move the timeline to the point where I'm making this motion. I'm going to go frame by frame until my hand is just past my face. It's not before, it's not a lot after, it's just past my face, which is here. Now I'll set a keyframe. Now I'll play the video forward to the end. Not far, this is less than a second here. And now I'm going to move the field of view 180 degrees and set another keyframe. Now when we play this back, it looks like I just hit the camera. Now I would recommend adding a little bit of motion blur in between these two final keyframes to make it extra dramatic. So I'm going to select time shift and I'm only going to set that to 2 times speed with the motion blur effect on, but doing it will just give that dramatic effect. Now here with the shot I'm transitioning into, you guessed it, it's going to be the opposite of that. So we're transitioning in with the spin. Again, we're turning 180 degrees between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2. Where my hand is just past the center point. And I've also added a bit of speed in here to speed it up. Now when we play that back, we have a whip pan to normal motion. Now in DaVinci Resolve, all we need to do is perform our trickery by syncing these up a bit better. You'll just want to make sure your hand is in the same position from shot to shot. So in my second one, I'm going to start it here and press Q. Let's look at that. And that transitioned so much better. So again, it's a game of trickery. The trick that you're performing isn't always obvious and it might not always work straight away. But with a bit of tweaking and moving frames left and right, adding transitions, shortening them, lengthening them, eventually you'll find the perfect combination that will create that perfectly seamless transition. Now the final thing I did here in DaVinci Resolve to help sell these transitions a bit better was add whoosh sound effects. Right at the point where the transition is, especially if you're making a cross dissolve, or the transition type is like a whooshy motion blur kind of transition, that's when a whoosh sound effect is going to fit perfectly. I got both the sound effects from this video and the music from Epidemic Sound, which I'll link below. Now, if you enjoyed this video and are keen to master your Insta360 camera as quickly as humanly possible, inside my 360 Video 101 course, you can find countless lessons just like this one that will take you from 360 beginner to pro in a fraction of the time it will take watching scattered YouTube tutorials over months and years. If you're curious, you can learn more by following the link below. Now, if you've decided that you're now going to edit with DaVinci Resolve, since it is 100% free and it's a fully fledged video editor very similar to Premiere Pro or other paid editors, in this video here, I'll show you how to use it in just 12 minutes. So you can use it in combination with Insta360 Studio to create amazing edits completely for free.